This is Scott Garber and Andrew Petcash. Excited to come back to the community with another spotlight on a mover and shaker in the industry. Lauren Selig, welcome to the Profluence community and the podcast. How are you doing today, my friend?
I am good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to hear questions, talk, and listen. So dive right in and
Love it.
let me know what
Love it, love it,
you
love
got
it.
to have in mind.
Well, today, we're going to spend the first bulk of the call just getting to know you, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. We're going to dive into some specifics, and then back into the call, we will open it up for Q&A. Housekeeping: if you guys do have a question for Lauren along the way, feel free to just let us know in the chat, and we'll be sure to populate that at the end or bring you on stage. So, Lauren, let's just go ahead and sort of set the tone. Give our audience a little background on who you are and how you navigated the world to end up in the space that you ended up today.
Yeah, that is a long and very windy story. I actually started out in the entertainment space, working at DreamWorks a long time ago. I lied about my age to get the job, and I only got the job because I had made a bet that I won. And the result of the bet was my friend had to give me a job at DreamWorks. So that's where I started. Ended up going off to law and business school, and out the back end of it ended up at Microsoft and acquisition. So my brain is very much half tech, half entertainment. I now run a fund called Shake and Bake Productions. I guess what happened sort of in hindsight in 2012, when my husband passed away and he was Bill Gates's technical advisor. I kind of woke up the next morning with two little kids under the age of 6 as a single widow and had no idea how that would sort of change the course of my life. But I kind of, as I kept plowing ahead, I realized what I loved doing was investing in people first and in industries and ideas that I thought were interesting and undeniable. And that's kind of what I do today. Shake and Bake is held as it's a fund, privately held, no external investors. And we invest in everything except for politics. So movies, television, blockchain, Web3, sports, biotech, space, consumer, across the board in all those fun little industries. And then I sit on uh, couple of boards that are totally not aligned with each other as most people would see it, but I see them very much aligned. I sit on the board of the X Prize, where we use gamification to solve some of the world's biggest problems. So $100 million prize with Elon for carbon initiatives, $150 million prize to reverse aging, things like that. I sit on the board of Pendrell, which is Bill Gates and Craig McCaw's private family office. And I sit on the board of the Ackerley Sports Group. So lots of sports and entertainment stuff that we're investing in terms of teams and technologies that support the sports world, which is more of what you're aligned with. So that is my shortened version of the windy road.
Yeah, and Lauren, I want to go a little deeper on that. I know today you sent me your company, what was it, Myco?
Oh, not my
Investing.
company. It's just one of the ones we invested in. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just curious, like, what in sports you're looking at. What are some of the deals you've done? I know you'd mentioned teams, leagues, but what's interesting you these days?
So a couple things. Again, it's always a people first thing. So for me, it's what kind of undeniable teams can we get involved in where we see that there's a value add that we can bring to the table. So as an example, we're buying the control piece of the Springbok, which is the #1 rugby team in the world. It's the first time sort of a state-owned team is allowing external investors to come in and basically buy the team. So really unusual deal. We beat out CBC on that one. Didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. We're sitting in the sweet spot of that. The Ackerleys own, parts of the Kraken and Leeds. We're looking at expanding a Major League Baseball team right now. Lots of different things in that area. I personally came in as an investor into things like Sail GP because I thought it was a really fun Formula One in the water. I liked how they built out the league. Thought it was really a fascinating sort of industry and a new sports bet that could happen and a really fun experience. But then we do a lot of investing in things that help support those ecosystems. So whether it's ad platforms or sports AI tools, companies that are making interesting bets in areas of branding and how you merge athletes with brands. And then certainly the content side of what we do is a big part of how we look at this. So when you look at how teams, leagues, and individual athletes, how they support their businesses through using their name, image, and likeness, and how do you create, drive to survives that pop off the back of that then feed back into making those teams, leagues, or athletes more valuable.
And Lauren, I was just going to sort of piggyback. I'm glad you went there, right? And I'd love to get sort of your deeper perspective, coming from a media background and storytelling, and now as the sports world has sort of collided with the entertainment space. I'm curious, do you think about building the league first and then using media to tell the story, or do you think about finding the right story and then building the league on the back of that? Curious from both the venture side and then the skill set side that you've built along the way, how you guys think about this.
I've seen it tried both ways. I think there's no real answer to that question, right? I don't think you start a team so you can make content, and you certainly can find lots of interesting stories that come off the back of experiences that you have that you never thought would become the next greatest story. But I don't tend to pick one before the other. I tend to usually just try to focus on what I think is a really prime opportunity for growth. And if there's a part of that ends up being in the content space, then that's awesome. If not, then I just move on to something else.
And then Lauren, from it seems like it's a global initiative for you guys with the rugby team and some of the teams and leagues elsewhere. What's sort of the thesis or the stages? Are you stage agnostic, or are there certain characteristics from the actual fund or your personal balance sheet that you're thinking about?
I am super stage agnostic. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. When I looked at the Bordeaux team, right? I don't know anything about that team at all, but I looked at the name and I was like, this is an amazing opportunity. Why would you not want to be part of owning the Bordeaux team? You can brand a lot of different things off the back of that. Of course, it didn't happen. We were a little too late in the game on it, and the team went completely sideways. But, I thought that was a really unique plan. I would have gone down that road if the opportunity and the time and the money had presented itself in the right way at that moment. But certainly the things that we're looking at right now are everything from new leagues that are being spun up, some interesting Web3 initiatives that are being created, some new ways of looking at content, right? Like, I think things like what Cosm are doing are very cool, and how you now watch sports and entertainment. And certainly as you're building out new teams and leagues and cities across the world, how do you engage your fans? How are fans getting involved in their teams in unique ways that they never have before? I'll give you a perfect example. There's a really cool company that I looked at recently called Disco. They're going to be doing something with Real Madrid, an AR system where it allows you to sort of engage in real time when you're walking into the stadium, and you can scan everybody in the stadium and see who's there as they spill out of the stadium. You can follow your fan base, you can sell tickets, you can buy swag, and it's all done in real time. And then that app isn't just useful for sports and entertainment, but imagine it in any conference that you go to where you're looking for somebody in the conference and you want to be able to see who's there, or in colleges where you're trying to meet new people for the first time. How do students engage with each other? That fan base is looking for new ways to become part of something. People want to figure out who their crew is, who their fan base is, who their people are, and they're dying to find new ways of hooking into each other. And the teams are dying to find new ways to monetize what they've got. So how do you do that, right? Same thing with looking at virtualizing athletes. How do you virtualize, a musician? How do you virtualize an athlete? How do you then begin to monetize that, where now you could take a boxer and you can do, a virtual boxing game with them that becomes massive, like what we did with Creed and Servios, which is, I think, now the #1 VR sports game in the world. So all these things didn't exist years ago because the technologies weren't there. The technology wasn't there to be able to do it. But now there is a new way of monetizing a lot of different sports that didn't exist before, and creating new sports that never existed before.
And Lauren, I'm curious how you think of the balance. You mentioned the people side earlier, that you very much invest into people, but you've also talked about some of the unique ideas in Web3 and the future of where it's going. How are you balancing that? And maybe even at this stage, if it's earlier, I'm curious how you think about it internally of that balance of the person and then also the opportunity or the idea.
Well, let me give you an example on the Ackerleys. I've known that family for my entire life. Like I remember sitting at the Sonics games when I was so little that my legs didn't bend over the edge of the seats, right? So memory in my mind is like that was a cool experience, and I had that luckily as a very little child. And now I happen to sit on the board as they're expanding their sports investment vehicle, right? So it started as a people first. I never would have been on that board if that hadn't happened, right? I have very close relationships with a lot of the film production companies because I happened to meet somebody early on who was making a movie about someone who I really believed in, and I wanted to be part of that. And so, as you kind of follow what your gut is telling you, it'll lead you down these paths to different ways of doing a business that is not just straightforward, right? I'm not looking at a deal that's coming through a fund because I'm the 20th person in line who's seen the same deal. It has never happened to me that way before. I always feel like by the time a deal gets to me, using uh, that as a way of finding the investment, then it's not for me. It's I feel like I'm the wrong person to have come to if it's come through that um, very mechanical way of receiving an investment. But if we can look at new things and tip it on its head and create um, new investment opportunities or new ideas that are not as straightforward, then that to me is more fun. To give an example, because I like to do it that way. And a couple years ago, a friend of mine was like, let's create a video game for mental health and let's go get the FDA to approve it. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous and it'll never happen. Well, we did it. And we just got an FDA approval for the first time in history for a video game last week. We'll announce it early September. But that's going to allow anybody who creates games, and maybe these are some sports games, or maybe these are new ways of playing sports that are more initiated with our health and wellness, and you can get it all reimbursed now by your medical coverage, right? So that's a whole new way of looking at health and wellness that engages with sports and athletes and teams and leagues that we won't have ever seen before. And so why would we not want to initiate that opportunity? But the opportunity didn't come because I was thinking, oh, this is a really cool, athlete that has a huge following and we're going to just shave off some of their followers and make money off of it. It came out of somebody who had a great idea that I thought needed to exist, right? And how do we create more opportunities in health and wellness, both in mental health, but also in physical health? And then how do we lop onto that what what the US government is trying to do and what our medical coverage are trying to do, and how do we align all of them and get an FDA approval for it? Like it should never have happened, but it did. And so now we're sitting on this little gold mine that we can now use to attract other people and other games and other companies that might need the tool set that we have in order to become more valuable. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense, and I want to stay on this train of thought, and I'm curious, Lauren, like you've had success at every phase of the journey, you've amassed an incredible
No,
network,
no, I have had
and
my ass handed to me. No, 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 no.
yeah,
I have
but I mean
definitely.
it's all part of the journey, right? And
Yes.
so I'm curious as we accumulate like both the scars, the wounds, and the victories. Lauren, what's the North Star, and how do sports play a role in achieving what success looks like for you in terms of the business lens?
My God, the North Star. I have to start with sharing like the stars that were not North Stars, right? Because I would hate to think that everything looks so rosy. I mean, I'm sure if you look at our website, it's like, oh wow, she's so successful. She's invested in all these companies. Like, I have had just horrible luck in a lot of things that I've tried to do or done. And I think that in many ways, that horrible luck has actually led to some great opportunities. Um, in the non-sports space, just to dive into that one a little bit, it's also led into some interesting sports opportunities. So in the non-sports space, we at one point were the second largest investor in the Telegram ICO. And then the US government said, nope, not going to do it. And they gave all the US investors back 70 cents on the dollar. And everybody else got back 110 cents on the dollar because we were Americans. And that's just how the SEC rules lay. And that's what happened. You know, we were not able to invest in Telegram, which ended up being a huge success. And now all of a sudden, Pavel, who created Telegram, is sitting in jail right now in France, right? Like, you can't predict these things and how they were going to happen. But along the way, I met some really interesting investors and now partners in what I do. And I never would have had that happen otherwise. That would have never taken place if I hadn't had to go through what we went through, which was not a fun experience by any stretch of the imagination. And so I've kind of had those experiences that have not led to good places, but they've also become, incredible opportunities in the long run. Same thing with, like, how we've made a lot of content. Some of that content has been a phenomenal experience, and some of it has been just a disaster. And I never would have been able to predict which one was going to be the higher success, if that makes sense. We've definitely
Lauren,
tried to
let me
buy
ask you
companies
this.
that we've not been able to buy, and then those companies have gone into the toilet, and vice versa. So,
And we
yeah.
have a lot of founders on here, and I mean, you have weathered a lot of storms, right? And so I'm always curious, like, how do you find, like, where do you find solace in this game, and
Mm.
sort of turn adversity into triumph, and make them opportunities. Any nuggets on that side? Because it's sometimes a lonely journey, and sometimes it feels like momentum is working against you. Just curious, if you have any nuggets of wisdom for, folks that are in the trenches right now.
Yeah, I have words of wisdom on this one. Um, and those words of wisdom are often not helpful in the moment when you're having your ass handed to you. But I think in the times where it's been the most difficult for me, I've also found my best friends, and I've found what really matters. Because I think when you're dealing with stuff that is very difficult, which companies can become, ideals can become, difficult, things that you've come up with, your own company can go under, finances can become turned upside down, the market can take a turn, something you thought you were buying, and you end up on the opposite side of a friend who ends up stealing it from you. Like, all these things have happened to me, or are maybe happening to some of the people that are on this call. But I will tell you that when that happens, you will definitely learn who your real friends are and how much that really matters. Because uh, when shit hits the fan, you're going to find who your real friends are. It's really easy to think how great it becomes when you've had a great success and you make a lot of money, and all of a sudden everybody wants to be your best friend. But that's not where you find your best friends. Your best friends you find when it's the opposite of that, and you're sitting on the other side of, like, a really difficult legal situation that you didn't think was going to happen, or a monetary situation you didn't think was going to happen. And I think that's actually quite beautiful when when those, you know flowers grow out of dirt for a reason. It's because it's just how it rolls. And I wish that I had the ability to certainly feel that this was happening for a reason and know that things were going to get better, when you are in those moments of, like, oh shit. But it isn't a little until, usually for me, until a lot later, and I look back on that experience and I go, oh, that's why. Got it. Okay. Now I see the reason why that happened.
No, I so appreciate the insight there, and I think we can all relate to that. and these nuggets are incredible. And one of the things that we like to do is open it up, to some questions, just so that we can get real world perspective from Lauren and start to lower the barrier to entry and humanize this whole ecosystem. So if you do have questions, feel free to raise your virtual hand. Marek, I'm going to come to you. I know that you popped one in the chat there, so kick us off, and we'll have time for a few more after.
I think I already got the answer. Hello from Europe as well, Lauren. Thanks for
Hi,
this.
thanks
I wanted to ask, are you also looking for like companies globally, also in EU and so on?
absolutely. I love my global friends and partners. One of the people who I've been very lucky to get to spend an enormous amount of time with and get to advise her and her team is Sheikha Latifa Maktoum, who is Dubai-based, Sheikh Maktoum's daughter. She's incredible. She runs culture for that region. So underneath her sits a lot of sports and entertainment and AI. I love my global partners in the Middle East. I love my partners in Europe. Certainly, obviously, we're doing investing in sports in that region because we have the Ackerley Sports Groups has a piece of Leeds, and we're obviously growing into South Africa because we've got Springbok, and we're going to do a couple more over there, if not many, many more. So yes, I am very, very excited about what's happening inside the US and also far outside the US as well.
I appreciate that. And it's sports is a global language, right? That we all speak. And so it's super exciting to see, the representation here and then the investing thesis. John Barbosa, my friend, you never fail. You ask a question at every one. So the floor is yours.
First, yeah, no, thanks for having me, and thanks for being here and sharing your story with us, Lauren. I'm curious. I'm curious about this FDA game that you just got approved, because I see so many synergies on what we are doing currently, that it's just a brand new insight for my team.
Yeah. So the founders of this company are the current head of neurology from Seattle Children's Hospital. He spends 14 hours some days with his hands inside of a small child's brain trying to get tumors out. He has a real job. What I do isn't going to kill anybody, hopefully. What he does might, and it might save somebody's life. But he was one of the founders alongside another friend of mine, Ryan, who has created many, many, many companies and sold a lot of them to Medtronic. So the basis of this game company was actually real. It's real science. We didn't just come up with a fun game and then decided to lop on FDA approval on top of it. Like, these guys have really done this before. And then, as we were moving down the line, Craig Mundy got involved from the Microsoft, being a great friend of mine, absolute luminary in the space. But I really do believe that when you look at things like Headspace and Calm, or things that you should be doing for hypertension or mental health or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, a lot of the solutions for that can be found in simple monitoring systems or games that can help with sort of navigating a lot of the things that I just talked about. And so we were looking to figure out a way that we could create a game that actually could do that. I unfortunately have the situation 2012 when my husband passed away. He took his own life. He was really struggling with exceptional amounts of mental health issues. And I always wonder if, medicine could have figured out some better ways for him to handle so many of the ups and downs. And he didn't have to rely on so much of actually the medication side, which is always sort of the first go-to for your doctor, is to prescribe you all this crap. Things might have been very different. And so I would like to think that somewhere along the way, what I do might make a difference in a positive way for somebody's life and might change it for the better. And I think there are many ways that you can do that. It's silly to think that, like, sports might be able to do that, but boy, does it, right? Physically really great for you, creates community, creates fan engagement, super fun. Gaming can do that for you. It doesn't always have to be, oh, my kid played video games for 8 hours today and it was such a bunch of garbage. Right? There's a lot of positive ways of making changes that don't need to be so overly complicated, and that can be exponentially, hopefully exponentially, life-changing for people. If I could do that all day long, I'd be damn happy.
Man, I love that. I don't know about you guys, that fires me up. Like, I mean, the purpose in what you're doing, Lauren, is awesome to hear, and the vehicles that you're using to get there is so aligned. All right, time for one more. Landon, we're going to come up to you, my friend. Floor is yours.
Lauren, you had mentioned something I really liked, is you're looking for undeniable teams. And I was curious about what makes an undeniable team.
Ooh, I love that. So actually, I was just having this conversation right before I jumped on this podcast with somebody who I actually just met, who runs a space company of all things. And, you know, his experience having been at some of the top 10 space companies in the world, 5 of which might have gone under, 5 of which might have been successful. But again, it's when they became really difficult, meeting those people along the way becomes part of their team. Like, are you going to get in the trenches with that person, get super dirty with them? You know, on your worst day, are they still, you know, maybe not your best friend, but when you fight, do you fight for the right things? And when I look for a team, I look for that just, you know, it almost makes the hair on your arms stand up. You get the goosebumps and you're like, oh, wow, that is an incredible idea, incredible story. He's got an incredible drive, incredible purpose, incredible intent. And he's going to take that passion and turn it into something great. And by the way, even if it doesn't turn into something great, I'm sure that pathway happened for a reason, and it'll just become something different. It'll become something completely unexpected that should have never, you know, happened. So I like to think that the people that I might invest in or become partners with or work with have some of those attributes. I've definitely missed along the way, for sure. My internal guide has led me down, you know, not always the right path, but I learned hopefully just as much, if not more, when that happens.
Super insightful there. You know, Lauren, as we bring this thing home, we can't thank you enough for coming on and dropping some nuggets of wisdom and sharing your journey. You know, part of this ecosystem is being a community. So if folks want to reach out to you, get in touch, share with what,
Please
you know.
do. Feel
Yeah, I
free
was
to
just gonna
share my
say, so
email. I am always
perfect.
open to that. You know, whatever you guys have as questions later on. Some people are shy like I am. I honestly don't think you believe I'm shy after this podcast, but I am actually incredibly timid and don't like to ask questions of other people. It's more a one-on-one private thing. So if you feel like asking me something, I am an open book and I have no filter. So you'll get a really honest opinion from me.
Buckle up when you reach out to Lauren. That's
Buckle
all I'm
up.
telling you
Buckle up, guys.
guys. Alrighty, guys. Well, listen, you guys could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here today. Lauren, we so appreciate you coming on, and you know, everyone in the community, we look forward to dropping this as a follow-up, you know, dropping Lauren's information, and encourage all of you guys to reach out and, you know, continue to build the relationships here. So hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you, guys. Honored to be invited to this, and have a great rest of your week.
Hey, thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Bye, guys.